Back to the channel. We're here in the Cluboratory at Miles of Golf. I'm Luke. Today I'm joined by one of our expert club fitters, Kevin Karen. Kevin, what's up, man?
How are we doing today, man?
Today we're looking at a brand new line of wedges from Vokey. It is their SM10. Building off of a very successful SM9 line, Vokey is always at the top of the mountain when it comes to wedges. Kevin, tell me a little bit about why Vokey is always kind of at that top.
Yeah, definitely. Titleist for tour players, in that side of things. They have so many bounce and grind options for every player, every delivery of club, with steeper players, shallower players. Different bounces for firm ground, soft ground, wet, dry, all conditions. So all over the world, Vokey has an option of wedge with a different loft, bounce, and grind for everybody to fit their game, to fill their gaps, to give them versatile shot options.
When we see new clubs come out, right, there's obviously always going to be something different about it. No companies really like to just release a club for the sake of releasing a new club. With Vokey, year after year, there's never huge, grandiose changes of like an entirely different new shape. And occasionally we see a new grind come into play, maybe some different bounce options. But when we're looking at what SM9 was in the last product generation into here, not a lot of, again, glaring changes, but stuff that's still very important to talk about.
Yeah.
One of the things being progressive CG, right?
Yep.
Tell me a little bit more about what that means.
Yeah, so with the progressive CG, the emphasis is going to be towards, if you section off your clubs and your wedges based on loft, you got your gap wedges, your pitching wedges, about 48, 46 to like 50, 52. Your sand wedges, 54, 56, and then your lob wedges. Throughout those loft changes in those different groups, you will see a more low, a mid, or a high CG. Higher being in the higher lofted, because these want to go up. They shift that CG higher up in the head to help you launch it lower with more spin, more distance control on the fuller swings, and then also the short pitch shots with the higher lofts. Mid on those sand wedges, so that you can still have that versatile do-it-all sand wedge where you do want full swings, 3/4, half shots, bunker shots, things like that, to give you good versatility. And then in those pitching wedge and gap wedge lofts, you have that lowest CG to give you that kind of turf interaction, launch and spin consistency that you'll see in like your pitching wedge with your set, or even your 9-iron if you go to like a Vokey pitching wedge.
They really make it easy to transition from that 9-iron pitching wedge into those wedges, because a lot of people might even play a 46 degree, like you said, of that Vokey. So for you
I'm
to
not
be
one to do that, just because I need a forgiving pitching wedge. But yeah, they're really good for those different loft options.
Yeah, and it just makes it a very seamless transition going through there, where there's not going to be a lot of difference in that turf interaction.
Yes.
And there's not going to be as much manipulation, which brings me kind of to the next point that we're talking about, of the progressive shaping of these the heads, especially in that leading edge. When you're looking at 46 through 52, it's a little bit more squared off when you set it down. And then once you get up into the sand wedge, lob wedge, it progressively gets a little bit more rounded at the bottom because of the versatility that that's going to offer. Yeah,
like that traditional teardrop shape. Once you look at, like, say a 60 degree that I have in my hand here, you see a lot more face with that higher loft than you do on your pitching wedge, where it's a little bit stronger, looking a little more square in the toe, a little taller up in the toe. But you'll have that rounded shape. Really, they do cater to a lot of the tour players in those shapes, because these are the most used on professional and high-level amateur tours around the world. So really fit the eye of those really good players, but also with different bouncing grinds as you shift the shape around in the bounce. It doesn't always look like it's blade and not forgiving. They still have really good top line footprint to them. So. And then another point of emphasis with these wedges. Both of what we just said was evident in SM9. They're just kind of fine-tuning those adjustments. I mean, they had 2 years to learn what's going to maybe help a player with that CG, so really fine-tuning where that placement is going to be at, as well as their heat treatment. Tell me a little bit more about that. Yeah, the heat treatment sense, in this model and even in the last one, is really good for the durability of these wedges. Obviously, these are probably the most used clubs in our bag. We're hitting 100 yards or 130 yards and in more often in and around a golf. There's a lot of emphasis for a lot of people that are trying to improve on working on your short game. So you're going to be hitting a lot of shots with these. You're going to be hitting from all different aspects of lies, rough, fairway, bunker shots specifically. That's where the heat treatment's super noticeable for like a lob wedge or a sand wedge for those greenside bunker shots. What they do is heat treating this is going to create more durable face, so wear and tear, friction with sand, and just use over time. It takes longer. So in the past, they typically saw you know, 400 shots out of the bunker, and then you start to notice, you know, fall off of consistency. They've doubled that. So, I mean, we're at 800 shots. So you can use a wedge for a good amount of the season. I mean, I can't tell you the last time I hit 800 bunker shots while practicing within a year. I mean, but that's, you know, different players, different practice tendencies. So, you know, for you that players that want to, you know, have the dialed in short game, and that's what you work on a lot because you save yourself shots on the course with these, you're going to notice a longer use of these before having to replace them. So.
Yeah, I think the actual number too, they said like over a life of a wedge, looking at that kind of 400 shot without heat treatment, you would see about 2,000 less RPM to spin, which is about 5 to 10 yards of rollout. I mean, that's the difference between hitting that ball to that back pin or being short-sighted over the green and maybe being very lucky to make a par, if not very lucky to make a bogey at that point.
You hit a front pin and you have a 5-year-old wedge that is looks like a bald tire on your car, and you're not really going to be able to get that thing to sit close to those front pins unless you got a slope behind it as a backstop in really dry conditions, and you're still able to hit a new ball or something like that. So,
it's wedges when it comes to fitting. We always say the putter is probably the most important club to get fit for because if we can get you to 3-putt one less time around, that's the difference between 80 and 79. Very, very close to that are wedge fittings because of a player's differing release patterns, what I was looking for. There's so many different ways to attack a wedge. I don't hit 50-yard shots the same as you, so there's no reason we should be playing the same wedge. If me and you are good buddies, let's say you play the 56 M grind, if you hit that well, I shouldn't just go into a store and be like, hey, my buddy hits this wedge really well, I just want to get one of those. Because that could be, again, the difference between saving a par or making a bogey on one of those weird chip shots.
I mean, that's a common thing that I see on a day-to-day basis, just standing on the floor in the shop. If somebody comes in with questions, they say, hey, my buddy had this wedge, I hit it well and I liked it, I want to get the same thing. I'm like, okay, let's try that same model. Let's see what loft you need to fill a gap if it's just a 1 wedge or 2 wedge setup you're looking for, but let's figure out the right bouncing grind so that we can have that contact in the right spot on the face to give you the right launch and spin because you don't swing the same as your buddy. So.
And bouncing grind is going to be a very popular topic of conversation throughout this testing because the amount of bounce and even the grind, it all has to do with turf interaction where you're making contact in the face. You said it a little bit at the beginning. We want to catch that ball between about the 3rd and the 5th groove. That's going to optimize a little bit of a lower launch with more spin to make sure we're getting that ball on the ground as quickly as possible and eliminating as many variables.
If you're able to hit it there, that's where that progressive CG really does the job that they have in that design. So if you're hitting it in the right spot, you're going to maximize your spin. You're going to keep the launch down so you can control your carry distances in the wedges.
And then one final thing we're going to talk about before we start hitting some golf shots here, just some different additions and subtractions from previous years. We see a new grind. I shouldn't say a new grind. They brought back the 54M grind. And it was a grind you could get through WedgeWorks going 54M. But now the fact that, hey, you can come in here, we can fit you to it, and you can walk away, that is huge. And then a subtraction we're seeing is they got rid of the...
they took out the L grind.
The L grind, correct.
And they still, you know, you got T grind, so similar bounce, very similar shape, but that leading edge is just a little different cut. More for like really firm, really grainy like Bermuda. You know, that places like Texas and Florida, that grind will work really well. Midwest golf with a little bit of moisture, it's not the best unless you get somebody that just does not hit down on it at all. So.
Or you just want to hit really saucy flop shots.
I
mean, it's always just fun to lay that thing wide open and hit it 3 yards. And then one final thing, again, not really performance oriented, but they got rid of the brush steel finish.
They did.
We now see more, what is it called again? It's nickel?
Nickel. It's got more of like a lighter gray. It's not as dark as obviously jet black, but a good transition and similar look to like your traditional tour chrome. Kind of a good mix between that and the black. So. Still going to have good durability. The wear on that shouldn't be super quick. The brush steel, you know, would wear off and then it would be a little shiny. But I know a lot of people really like that kind of copper or off copper look of that finish. But I think that nickel's going to be really popular.
Very much so.
So it's not blinding you in the middle of the day with that sun, you know,
just staring down at it.
Yeah.
All right. Let's get into a little bit of the testing now. Which one do you have in your hands right now?
I am currently holding a 60-degree 12D. So my gamer, I have mine slightly tweaked for loft. I got a 59, so this is bent 1 strong, but same bounce, same grind.
And so you said this is your gamer. This is the one you're used to. Why do you play D grind?
For me, it's I really focus on turf interaction. So I find myself during a round of golf, I have always played ball back in my stance, weight forward, handle forward. So for me, the leading edge with those lower bounces just gets a little too down, and then it wants to dig, and then I get stuck. I lose my ball speed, I lose my consistency. So this higher bounce allows me to still have that tendency to hit down, but allows that club to do the work for me. Perfect. And help me maintain turf interaction, ball speed, direction, curvature, things like that. That one struck a little bit better, maybe a groove low compared to the one before.
That's perfect right there. So that was about a 50-yard shot. We saw it launch at 28 and spin at 7,500 RPMs. It's money.
I've never been one to really cut the legs off of it and go at it really hard. I've always been really smooth tempo, which allows that to kind of lag behind and then keep that launch down and put enough spin on it.
Yeah.
That's where that leading edge sometimes gets a little steep on me, and then I get stuck in the wet ground.
That's money right there. So that one right there, we launched that at 25 with 8,000. So that's exactly where we would want to see that kind of 50-yard shot.
Just a little more height to it. That felt really good though. Like I felt like I slightly mishit that, and I watched that thing actually coming off floating slowly. That's a really good flight that I like to see. That was juiced.
Yeah, definitely caught that one a little higher in the face. You swung a little bit harder at it.
I did.
But here's a good thing. We caught it high in the face where normally we're not going to see it spin as much. We saw that CG placement really go to work for you, where you still kept launch at right at 32, which is kind of at more of the high end we'd want to see a distance like this be.
I usually try to fit for 30.
Exactly.
Just under 30, yeah.
But you still spun at 8,000, which catching it like that, that's money. So switching it up a little bit, we just hit D grind, now we're in M grind. Tell me the differences between those two.
Not a whole lot between those two. They are very similar. So as far as shape goes, when you look at that sole, you're going to see a decent footprint of that sole that you'll actually have with turf. Good amount of relief shaved off on the toe, trailing edge, and then also in the heel. So it allows you to hit that club, with the square face, the handle a little back, kind of sitting up a little bit with that trailing edge, shaved off. When you want to open that face up a lot and sit it more on the heel for your bunker shots and your face open around the green out of the rough, or even when you want to get closer to the ball and kind of go handle up, toe down a little bit, allows you to keep that that leading edge in a good spot so that we can make good contact in the right spot.
I would say the D grind and the M grind are probably our two most popular ones we sell here off the rack in that lob wedge area.
Yeah, definitely.
Obviously, we don't have those sort of grinds in 46 to 52. There's just no need for that amount of versatility.
Yep.
But up here in Michigan especially, 8 degrees is about as low as we normally want to go, and 12 degrees is a good middle ground for the person that still wants that versatility. Yeah. So those two kind of being very similar to what they're looking to do, we have two different bounce profiles to really cater to a person's release pattern.
Yeah, I'll see a lot of people go with like a 12D and a sand wedge and then like an M grind in their lob wedge because they're going to want to be opening the face up. You're going to add some bounce to that, but just not a huge difference in the versatility and the types of shots you can hit with the two of those. So if you still want to hit greenside shots with your sand wedge, you still have similar usage that you can. Usually you're hitting out of a rough or like a thin rough or even bunkers. So obviously you still have that same shot options. So
yeah. See a couple with that.
I'm probably going to hit these really good, even though I play a D grind. Felt a smidge high on the face.
That was money. That launched at 30 with 9,300. You could definitely hear the...
That went in the hole. I mean, it hit off another ball and went in, but it still went in.
But sound-wise, obviously, when fitting wedges off mats, sound is super important in making sure that we're going to get the right turf interaction. That one, we heard the thud and just a little bit more turf before the golf ball. So we saw launch go up, we saw spin go down. That's one of the reasons why you probably wouldn't play this wedges because of that miss right there. Yeah. See another one.
But yeah, when I'm in my fittings and I hear somebody hit a really, really good wedge shot, That sound that you get is awesome because you hear that bounce get activated in the turf. That little bit of a thud, but you still get a little bit of a click. They're ripping the cover off the ball and they're really, you know, putting some spin on it.
That's gonna have so much spin on it.
I could hear that thing spinning.
29 degrees of launch, 8,100 RPMs of spin. Yeah. Money. All right, now we're switching it up to S-Grind, just changing the tag over. Tell me about this guy.
Yeah, S-Grind, named after Steve Stricker. Fun fact. Mostly because of how he utilizes a wedge when he's hitting different shots. Not one to really lay that thing flat and hit those, you know, big swing flop shots. More traditional wedge player where he really uses that sole, activates that bounce on that turf that they're playing on, which is usually pretty firm. But, you know, have the subtle face open shots every now and then, so that's where you just have that squared look from heel to toe. So not a whole lot of rounding on the heel side or even ending the toe, just very minimal, but mostly taken off trailing edge. So still on a full swing, you know, maintains face angle through the turf, but still allows you to hit those kind of soft handle back a little bit spinny shots when you're around the green, looking for like those soft higher shots coming into the green. So
this S-Grind is a wedge I like to hand to people that aren't necessarily new to golf, but have been playing for a little bit and have usually had the sand wedge that just comes with their set of irons.
Yeah, definitely.
They want to get into that little bit of aftermarket wedge, but they might not have all of the skills, I want to say, necessary to open up the face, close down the face, where there's no need for that, I should say. This is a really good one because you can manipulate it a little bit. You can kind of get the feel of that, but it's going to be a little bit more forgiving than those other ones.
I mean, when you look at it, obviously, if say you look at somebody and they have their set sand wedge and it has that same wider sole, higher bounce look to it, but it's got this similar shape where it's, you know, relatively the same width from the leading edge to the trailing edge, from the heel all the way to the toe. But this, we just get a little bit more of relief taken off to allow for that versatility. So you can still have the same confidence of hitting the same types of shots, but allows you to still get into those different scenarios that you might have ran into in the past where you couldn't hit the shots that you wanted to just because of that set sand wedge or lob wedge or whatever it was. Just the bounce and grind was limiting them.
Little low on the face. That's what it sounded like, at least.
Yeah, maybe a groove and a half, 2 grooves low.
Still amazing spin characteristics out of it.
I've always been, you know, a tendency hit it maybe a groove low where I really want to, but I mean with that you have the CG up, so it still keeps the launch down.
Oh yeah, it still kept that
up. Yeah, you just have them come in kind of hot sometimes. So if it's a front pin, you're screwed. Mid pin, you're okay, or back pin, it works out well.
Kind of same sort of miss we saw out of it. But what's really good to see, we're watching that progressive CG go to work. Still really good launch and still really good spin. Yeah.
For me, the reason I know that this isn't working as good is simply because of the grind. I have always, you know, left that face a little open and I get the handle forward. So with this trailing edge, you got a little taken off, but in that heel, this sits a touch higher. So I'm probably going to catch things lower on the face with this, unless I just really get steep and have that, you know, face de-lofted a lot more, and then I'm still going to see a lower launch.
Yep.
That one was hit well. I hit that a little bit higher.
That was really nice.
Yep.
31 launch, 8,000 spin. Definitely not as higher spin as we saw with some other grind options, but as expected.
Yeah.
All right. Now we got K-Grind. Tell me a little bit.
K-Grind, extremely good bunker club. So you'll see a lot of players come in and want something that's just for those greenside bunker shots. One thing I will always ask, though, if they are interested in this, if they are already aware of the differences, is what's your course condition that you play on? What's the bunkers like? Just because it is a little bit higher bounce, if you are playing on a course with a little less sand, you just got to make sure that we have the right bounce for those hard pan bunkers that don't have very much sand in them. So If you're on one that has, you know, a good amount or really fluffy, these are amazing. Also out of the rough. I mean, around the green, that wide sole and higher bounce allows that thing just to get through that turf so easily. Even if it's really wet and, you know, the club wants to dig, it's a really good Band-Aid, honestly.
Big time.
It's just very helpful, super forgiving. Honestly, probably the most forgiving of the bunch.
Yeah, and it's not a wedge only reserved for people looking for that forgiveness too. You ever heard of Adam Scott?
Yeah.
Yeah, he plays this guy.
Yeah. Honestly, K-grind, this is the most used grind on the PGA Tour. Or I think in professional golf on all tours. I think this is one that's used mostly for those greenside bunker shots. I know there is a modified grind to this. There's a low bounce option where that trailing edge and leading edge is slightly different shape.
Yes. But
got that same wide sole, works really good through the sand, and then also like thicker rough. Like they'll play in US Opens and things like that.
So let's make a little hypothesis before you hit those same 50-yard shots. How do you think this is going to turn out for you?
For me, I think that this actually will probably work well. I might have a little tendency to catch it a slightly lower on the face, just because I'm going to want to open it up a little bit, and it's not the most relief taken off of the heel. I sit a lot of my wedges on the heel. There's still some taken off, but not as much as a D grind or an M. And I've always played those grinds, so they're just very comfortable for me. I think that we're still going to see decent launch and spin. I think it's going to stay down because we got that CG so high. Hopefully the direction is okay. If anything, I might have that face kind of want to shut down because I might catch it more on the heel.
Let's test it out.
Footprint looks really good though. Even though it's a wide sole and sitting a little higher off the ground, it doesn't look like it is, honestly. Yep.
Yeah, that thud.
Yeah, good sound.
Really good sound. I saw that jump back
really
on the
good.
grass.
Yeah, it had some spin on it.
Caught that definitely low on the face. I heard that.
Yeah.
We already covered that. A little bit more bounce, leading edge is a little bit higher off the ground. That type of shot's going to tend to happen, but that's not hurting you at all with how that performed.
I generally, if I had another wedge in my bag, like a sand wedge, and I'm at this distance and I know I have this as my higher loft, and I'm still at that yardage where this could be okay, I'll still gravitate towards something with a different grind if this is like my bunker club or hitting out of the rough. That's where this high bounce, wide sole is going to be really beneficial.
That's where like 54M, now that they have that back in retail, that's where that would be huge.
Yeah.
Just a touch thin. It's nothing that would kill us though.
Yep.
Let's move it on down. So now we're looking at the complete opposite end of the spectrum of the K grind. You have the T grind in your hands now.
Yeah, so big difference here. T grind, 4-degree bounce. This is a 60-degree that I'm hitting. Smallest footprint as far as sole. This is very little that will interact with the turf as much. You got some trailing edge that obviously you can lay it back on when you open that face up. But ultimate relief shaved off in the toe. Very much taken off the back on the trailing edge, and then also a good amount in the heel as well. Very versatile, but not the most forgiving unless you're playing on very firm ground or hitting out of, say, bunkers with very little sand. But really good option for somebody that has a hard time hitting down on it, and they need to still catch it in the right height on the face. Maybe not my cup of tea in this one, but let's see what it does.
Definitely heard the wedge go under the ball right there.
And visual proof, I hit that on groove. I hit that on about groove 6, 7.
Yeah.
So just a smidge too high. Felt really good, but I felt like I slid right under it.
And there's maybe the best example so far of the progressive CG going to work. We both heard the sound, wasn't ideal.
Yeah.
31 degrees of launch, 9,200 RPM spin.
I'll take that all day long and around the golf. And honestly, I'd usually expect those to fly farther and go a couple more yards. That came up a little short.
Yeah, that was
so
35 yards.
Slow and kind of floated off the face. That is okay.
Yeah.
I'd rather be short hitting my wedges into the green than long.
That's gonna have so much spin on it.
Yeah. Little low. One thing that I would expect out of this, I'm gonna have a lot less consistency in my impact, just because that head's not reacting the same on the turf.
Yeah. A lot more loft on that one, especially got up in the air a little bit.
Decent height, still about groove 4 or 5, so just a smidge high of like where I would prefer to hit it, or I normally would. Felt like it jumped off a little quicker.
Yeah. But still, again, still keeping it in the prime launch conditions of 30 degrees aloft and about 9,000 RPM spin.
Really good option though for somebody that's going to want to open that face up, because you're going to add some bounce. But you know, if you get bunkers that don't have much sand, or you want to hit this from like that approach into the green and you want to open the face up, a really good option for that. So I can cut the legs off of it and really put spin on it.
Yeah,
that was hit really well.
That's my favorite shot in golf.
Yeah.
So our final contestant of the night, the last grind, we have our F grind. Tell me a little bit about this guy.
Yeah, so the one that I'm testing, it's not the same loft. We don't have it in a higher loft at the moment, but we got a 56. It is a 14-degree bounce F grind. You're going to see a lot of similarities with this and your gap wedge and your pitching wedge, but the bounce is slightly different. Yep. Generally, around the green, you're going to be hitting from thicker rough, different lies, versus traditional wedge shots from a fairway. So you do still get that, you know, good amount of relief, but it's kind of that all-purpose wedge that really is meant for square face only. Yes. Very little manipulation can happen with this, just because there's no relief shaved off in the toe or the heel, especially on the trailing edge. So really just a square face wedge shot for guys that love to hit those like low runners, bump and runs around the green, and really keep that handle forward and that face kind of square.
And exactly what you said, that's the reason they don't make this up into the 58 through their 62, is because you're not supposed to manipulate this face, which is what you're doing with those lofts.
Very similar to like your S grind, but S being taken off on the back just allows for a slightly more versatile option, but really good for somebody that just wants to set that face up square and just make that putting stroke with their wedge. It's awesome, like from a fringe or right around the edge of the green, and you just want to get it on the ground running. See how it works on a 50-yarder. You can tell though, you know, when I put this thing down and I set that wedge how I want to, I can just see that shadow under the leading edge. It just gets so much greater. I can see that big gap that's there, so it is sitting a little high.
Yeah. And this is going to go a little bit farther.
Yep. I might hit it in a decent height on the face for the most part, but still this sole is not allowing me. I get a little scoopy through impact, so I do kind of try to add some loft to it. It's probably not going to want to do that. It's going to be hitting that trailing edge, and that's not going to allow me to keep that face at the right angle through impact that I traditionally would use.
That was really nice.
Yeah, hit really well.
That was really nice. I think it just took you one swing to get used to it.
Yeah.
Again, it's not the typical ones. And then we saw a spin dramatically jump up there from your first shot with it, up to that 7,200 number. It's really good.
That had absolutely no curve on it. That was dead straight. Trying to keep this face as square as possible to let that sole do the work it should.
A little thin. Is that like a groove low?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Again, spin's just not keeping up the way we saw with other ones.
I think bounce is just a touch too high for me, especially off this tight mat.
Yeah. This right away, if this was a fitting, I'd take this out of your hand.
It's a great specialty club if I wanted to really get that handle forward and just hit like little bump and runs.
Yeah, that's right there, that shot you just hit, that's what this is meant for.
Really good for those, yeah.
So we just hit every single grind option that they have available at retail. Starting with D grind, this one we started off with, the one you have in your bag. Yep. Very solid numbers. 27 degrees of launch, 8,500 RPM spin. It's money.
Pretty normal numbers for me with what my impact and my, you know, for that distance, those are pretty comparable for what I would normally see. D grind allows me to hit my different shots while maintaining that higher bounce, so that, you know, based on course conditions, which I'm usually on softer courses being Midwest, works really well in all different lies. So.
Going into M grind, your dispersion got a lot tighter with that. Could have been that D grind was the first wedge that we started off with of the day. You had to get a little bit warmed up. You spent all day fitting, so you had to take a second to get into the environment. But distance dispersion there was amazing. 31 degrees of launch, 8,200 RPM spin.
I mean, I feel really comfortable with an M grind. It's just not in every situation, on average, probably going to be my best option, just because I do prefer a little higher bounce with softer ground or fluffy bunkers, thick rough. But I've played M grind in the past before they introduced the D grind, so you know, very comfortable with it. I know that I can hit the shots I want to when it's called for. Yeah.
Going into S grind, again, that Steve Stricker one, it's meant for more square, kind of squared off shots. Saw spin drop down from what we had seen, which was kind of as suspected. but still stayed at that golden number of 30 degrees of launch, just a hair under at 29 and 8,200 RPMs of spin.
Yeah, yeah. I really like S-Grind. It's a really good option, like we were talking about, for somebody that's coming from a, a traditional wedge that's designed and included with their set, or maybe a box set wedge. So they can still hit the similar shots that they're comfortable hitting, but still allow some of that versatility. Just a little too much trailing edge on the heel for me, so it's obviously not the best option that I like to play.
I think where S-Grind fits perfectly into people's bags is that 54 to 56 range.
Yeah.
We did all testing with 58s to 60s so we could try to get the most similar performance.
Yeah.
But like you said, you like to manipulate that loft of wedge a little bit more.
Yep.
But this S-Grind in particular would be more kind of catered towards that 50 to 56 for a player like you.
Yeah, definitely. And honestly, I would be able to make that work with that sand wedge, because for me, it is a do-it-all wedge, so it might not be the best as like a D-grind. It's similar bounce, but not as versatile if I want to use that sand wedge up near the green. But I still take those 80, 90, 100-yard wedge shots on the golf course, and that S-Grind is really good for somebody that has different wedge lofts and different grinds for different shots. So it definitely is something where you could have a couple options in your bag.
Then moving on to K-Grind, really, really good numbers there. 25 degrees launch, just a hair under 8,900 RPMs of spin.
If I can get that launch to consistently be 25, 26, or even a little bit lower, I do like flighting those wedges down, unless I got to get it up over like a front bunker or a tree or something. That K-grind's really intriguing. I really like how that felt, so it might be a gamer for the bunker shots this year. I might try that out.
And then, like we said, the complete opposite end of the spectrum. I'm going to delete the super flop that we had at the end just so I can really look at spin characteristics there. Just deleting that guy as we go. 28 degrees of launch, 9,000 RPM of spin.
Yeah.
So you were catching that a lot lower on the face. Well, not a lot lower, I should say, but more in that zone where we're going to get the maximum.
I know my shots, the group, I hit a couple of them low, but I know we had that one where I actually hit it high, and that progressive CG did the job. So that is a really good testament to what they've done in the last few models for that shift in the CG on those higher lofted wedges, specifically in those low bounce options too.
Big time. And our final one that we tested today with F-Grind, not our best, but with the shots we were trying to hit, we wanted to make it all equal. This definitely wouldn't be the wedge you played. We saw the numbers kind of represent that.
For me, this is just a pitching wedge and gap wedge loft or grind that I would typically use, where I'm just square face on everything and I'm trying to hit down and trap that ball between the face and the ground.
Yeah, this isn't one, for a good reason why they don't have it in the 58 and 60. You're not trying to open this up at all. Yeah. We did the 56 to try to keep it as close to those 58s and 60s that we had, but we definitely saw spin drop down, which we're going to see out of that. Yeah. But I already deleted it off here so I could look at spin. That's perfect for the little 10-yard bumper run shot that you want to hit. Yeah. I mean, all in all, super, super impressed with how the progressive CG performed today. The amount of shots that I heard you hit that didn't sound like they should have still performed immaculately. That's
definitely one thing that I've already got just from this little bit that we've hit here, and then I hit a few shots throughout the day with these demos just to kind of get a good feel for them, so I can give the customers when they come in for fittings, so we can get them pre-ordered before the release date, just to have some info to give the customers as far as look, sound, and feel. For the players that want that info given to them, that aren't aware of what the clubs already provide. I'm super easily going to be able to just take what I got, order them in the same bounce and grinds and lofts, and just plug the new ones in and not see any change. I actually like the improvements. Feel was very, very good. And then that consistency, even on those high shots, I'll take that all day long, because I do have a couple times where I'll lay the sod on it and catch it higher on the face and then expect it to not do what it should, but if it's going to help out, that's huge.
Yeah. I mean, year after year, Vokey's at the top of the mountain.
Yeah.
It's going to take a lot to knock them off, and for good reason.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a reason they're the most trusted in the world and the most played on tour. So they cater to consistency, luxury wedges that aren't super expensive, and just really good, durable, long-lasting clubs. So,
other than that, that about does it. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, it really means a lot. Please subscribe to our channel if you haven't. If you have any other video ideas you want us to do or clubs you want us to test, please leave that in the comments below. Other than that, see you later.